King Charles just broke 50 years of royal protocol, and what happened next could end a Prime Minister's career in 72 hours. Last Tuesday, 9:47 a.m, Prime Minister Keir Starmer sends a private letter to Buckingham Palace. The request: cancel all London public appearances for 3 months. The reason cited: security concerns. King Charles read it, then did the exact opposite. Within 2 hours, 5 new London events scheduled, including an unannounced visit to meet veterans in the East End. That decision just triggered the biggest constitutional crisis since 1936. And if you think this is just political theatre, hit subscribe, because what's unfolding right now will determine whether Britain still respects its 1,000-year-old monarchy, or whether politicians can exile kings from their own capital. Here's what they're not telling you. Leaked Labour documents obtained by The Telegraph Wednesday reveal the real reason for Starmer's request. One internal memo states royal appearances creating problematic nationalist sentiment that undermines Labour messaging. Read that again. Problematic nationalist sentiment. Translation: too many Brits love their king, and that's inconvenient for Starmer's agenda. When you have a monarch who draws crowds, inspires loyalty and represents continuity, it becomes harder to push through radical reforms that fundamentally reshape British identity. When senior Labour strategist Morgan McSweeney's email leaked saying, "The monarchy represents everything Labour needs to dismantle," Parliament erupted. Conservative MP Jacob Rees-Mogg read it aloud in the Commons. The chamber fell silent, then chaos. Even neutral observers called it constitutional vandalism. Political commentators, who normally stay above the fray, used words like shocking and unprecedented overreach. But here's where this stops being about Westminster power games and becomes deeply personal. James Morrison, 67 years old, Royal Marine, 22 years of service, 3 commendations for bravery under fire. Yesterday, outside the Imperial War Museum, his voice broke as he spoke to reporters. "We didn't fight for this country so some politician could tell our king where he can and cannot go." Morrison lives on a military pension that barely covers rent in a 1-bedroom flat in Portsmouth. Meanwhile, cabinet ministers live in taxpayer-funded apartments costing £4,000 per week in central London. The contrast isn't lost on anyone. Patricia Hughes, a retired nurse from Durham who spent 40 years in the NHS, stood outside her local town hall with a homemade sign reading, "Hands off our king." Her words cut deeper than any political speech. "I've voted Labour my entire life. My father voted Labour. My grandfather voted Labour. But this attack on our monarchy? Unforgivable. They've lost me forever." These aren't isolated voices. They're a tidal wave. A veterans group calling themselves Defenders of the Crown launched a petition demanding Starmer's resignation. Within 48 hours, 387,000 signatures. By Friday morning, it had crossed 500,000. The petition website crashed twice from traffic overload. Former Army Colonel Richard Kemp, who commanded British forces in Afghanistan and survived 3 IED attacks, appeared on BBC Breakfast, visibly shaken. His hands trembled slightly as he spoke. "In 30 years of service, I never questioned my government's respect for the Crown. Now, I don't recognise this country. The men and women I served with, the ones who came home in flag-draped coffins, they believed they were defending something sacred. And now a Prime Minister is treating that institution like a political inconvenience." His interview was shared 2.1 million times in 18 hours. Comments flooded in from veterans across NATO countries expressing solidarity. This wasn't just British outrage anymore. This was becoming an international story about whether elected politicians can subjugate constitutional monarchies. Then King Charles did something no reigning monarch has done in modern history. Yesterday, Commonwealth Day service, Westminster Abbey, cameras broadcasting to 50 countries, dignitaries from across the Commonwealth in attendance. Charles delivered what palace insiders are calling the most pointed speech of his reign. "Service to this nation is not a privilege granted by politicians," the King said, his voice steady but carrying unmistakable steel. It is a sacred duty that transcends temporary governments and fleeting political wins. Those who serve understand this. Those who seek only power never will. Silence. Complete, absolute silence in the Abbey. You could hear the shuffle of uncomfortable ministers in their pews. Archbishop of Canterbury looked stunned. Commonwealth representatives sat frozen. Charles didn't name Starmer. Didn't need to. He just told the world on live television broadcast to millions, my Prime Minister values power over service, and everyone watching knew exactly who he meant. Palace sources confirm Charles personally rewrote that section 6 times, removing diplomatic cushioning, adding sharper edges. Senior advisors tried talking him out of it. The private secretary warned it would trigger a constitutional crisis. The Lord Chamberlain said it crossed lines no modern monarch had crossed. Charles overruled them all. This wasn't about protocol anymore. This was about drawing a line. What happened next proves Starmer catastrophically miscalculated the royal family's unity and resolve. Prince William made an unscheduled hospital visit in Woolwich, meeting wounded veterans from recent deployments. Speaking to soldiers with fresh scars, as says, and missing limbs, he said something extraordinary. My father and I will always be wherever Britain needs us most. No memo, no letter, no politician's preference will ever change that. This is our country too. The camera caught several veterans with tears streaming down their faces. One sergeant saluted despite having lost his right arm. The clip went viral instantly. The entire royal family united against Downing Street in coordinated defiance. Princess Anne, the hardest working royal with over 500 engagements annually, cancelled a private estate event to make an unannounced appearance honouring the household cavalry. Prince Edward appeared at 3 public engagements in 2 days, each time emphasising duty, service and permanence. Even minor royals who typically avoid controversy suddenly appeared at veterans' charities and military memorials. This wasn't pushback, this was coordinated warfare. The monarchy activated its full institutional weight against the sitting government. The financial markets reacted first and brutally. The pound dropped 2.3% against the dollar within 90 minutes of Charles's speech. Currency traders cited constitutional uncertainty and political instability in their sell orders. £8.7 billion wiped from the FTSE 100 by market close. Goldman Sachs issued a client memo warning of unprecedented constitutional risk in UK assets. International investors started questioning Britain's political stability. When your constitutional monarchy starts publicly warring with your elected government, global markets get nervous, very nervous. Then the political fractures began spreading through Labour like cracks in ice. 7 Labour backbench MPs have now publicly broken with Starmer on this issue. Veteran Labour member Graham Stringer, who's represented Blackley and Broughton for 27 years, called it the stupidest political decision in modern history during a radio interview. He didn't hedge, didn't soften it, just said it plain. Sarah Champion, MP for Rotherham and a Labour loyalist, received 847 constituent emails demanding Starmer apologise to the King. 3 supported him. 3. She told her local newspaper she's deeply concerned about the direction of leadership. International reactions came fast and damaging. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese abruptly cancelled his planned state visit to Britain, citing scheduling conflicts that mysteriously appeared overnight. Nobody believes the official excuse. Australian media outlets openly reported it as a snub related to constitutional tensions. Canadian officials leaked concerns to the Globe and Mail about constitutional stability affecting upcoming trade talks. One unnamed senior diplomat said, "We need to know Britain has a functioning government before we commit to major agreements." New Zealand's parliament, in a rare unified moment, passed a motion supporting constitutional monarchy, 87 votes to 33. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon called it reaffirming our commitment to Westminster parliamentary traditions and constitutional stability. Even countries considering becoming republics paused to watch Britain's chaos with concern. Protests erupted simultaneously across Britain in a way that shocked political analysts. Manchester, Birmingham, Glasgow, Cardiff, Newcastle, Edinburgh, Belfast. Every major city saw thousands march supporting the monarchy. In Liverpool, traditional Labour heartland, a city that hasn't voted Conservative in decades, 6,000 people gathered in the city centre, waving Union Jacks, singing God Save the King. Signs read, "Hands off our crown" and "Starmer must go." Local Labour councillors watched in horror as their constituents marched against their own party's leadership. The polling shows something genuinely unthinkable. A Sunday Times survey revealed 68% of Britons believe Starmer should resign over this crisis. Not step back, not apologise, resign. His approval rating collapsed from 41% to 23% in 5 days, the fastest prime ministerial decline ever recorded in British polling history. Even during the worst of Boris Johnson's scandals, the decline was slower. UKIP's tracker shows Starmer now less popular than any prime minister since approval ratings began in 1977. He's less popular than Liz Truss during the pension crisis. Think about that. Inside number 10 Downing Street, the atmosphere has turned toxic and paranoid. Cabinet Secretary Simon Case reportedly slammed a folder on the table during Tuesday's emergency meeting. Papers scattering everywhere, and said, "You've created an unsolvable disaster. There is no good outcome now. None." Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner was overheard in a corridor telling shadow cabinet members, "Loyalty has limits. Those limits have been reached. We can't go down with this ship." WhatsApp groups with names like Last Stand and Post-Keir Planning are lighting up with messages about replacing Starmer before he destroys the party's electoral chances for a generation. Screenshots have leaked showing senior MPs openly discussing transition timelines. The question isn't if they'll move against him, it's when and how brutal they'll be about it. Foreign Secretary David Lammy looked physically ill during yesterday's press briefing, stammering through answers, unable to defend the government's position. Defence Secretary John Healey has stopped defending Starmer entirely, pivoting every question away with practised evasion. 3 junior ministers have drafted resignation letters. They're waiting for the right moment, likely coordinating for maximum impact. Sources close to the cabinet describe Starmer as increasingly isolated, convinced everyone around him is plotting his removal, seeing betrayal in every meeting he's not invited to, every conversation that stops when he enters a room. He's right. Chancellor Rachel Reeves held a 3-hour private dinner at her Notting Hill townhouse Wednesday night. 10 senior Labour MPs attended. No agenda was published, no minutes taken, but everyone in Westminster knows what they discussed. Reeves is positioning herself as the unity candidate who can restore constitutional normalcy, heal the rift with Buckingham Palace, and salvage Labour's reputation before the damage becomes permanent. She's been making quiet calls to trade union leaders, promising her first act as Prime Minister would be a personal public apology to King Charles at Buckingham Palace, broadcast live. Meanwhile, Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has stopped attending cabinet meetings, claiming illness nobody believes. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper was spotted leaving Parliament through a side entrance at 11 p.m. Thursday after a 2-hour meeting with 6 independent-minded backbenchers known for ending leaders' careers. The plotting isn't even secret anymore. It's happening in plain sight. But here's the part that could end Starmer's career permanently and destroy any chance of political rehabilitation. Leaked cabinet documents obtained by The Times reveal that senior advisers warned Starmer repeatedly, explicitly and in writing that this would explode. Policy Director Claire Ainsley wrote a 9-page analysis detailing exactly how public opinion would turn, how constitutional experts would condemn it, how even Labour voters would see it as overreach, how the monarchy would fight back, how markets would react. She predicted everything that's happening now, everything. Starmer's response, according to 3 people present at the meeting, was chilling. The monarchy needs to understand who's actually in charge here. This is a test. Either they bend or will find other ways to diminish them. If these documents are authentic and the Times stands by their sourcing, Starmer deliberately chose this confrontation knowing it would damage Britain, knowing it would trigger constitutional crisis, knowing it would hurt his own party. He gambled everything on a power play designed to humiliate the monarchy and establish political dominance, and lost spectacularly. Conservative leader Rishi Sunak is positioning himself as the calm, constitutional voice of sanity. During Prime Minister's questions yesterday, he didn't shout, didn't attack, didn't grandstand. He simply asked, in measured tones, does the Prime Minister regret attempting to exile our monarch from his own capital? The restraint was masterful, the question unanswerable. Even Labour MPs winced and looked away. The polls tell a story that absolutely terrifies Downing Street strategists. Conservatives have surged to 38% support, their highest in 18 months. Labour has fallen to 24%, their lowest since the 2024 election. For the first time since Starmer became Prime Minister, voters prefer Sunak to Starmer. 52% to 31%. That's not a gap, that's a chasm. In traditional Labour strongholds, County Durham, South Yorkshire, Wales, the Conservative lead has expanded to double digits. Seats Labour has held for 50 plus years are now genuinely competitive. Sunak looks like Britain's adult in the room. Defending tradition and stability, Starmer looks like someone throwing tantrums at institutions he doesn't understand and doesn't respect. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage is also capitalising on Labour's implosion. At a rally in Stoke-on-Trent Thursday night, 4,000 people packed the venue. When Farage took the stage, the crowd spontaneously chanted, "God save the King," for 5 straight minutes. Farage stood silently, hand over heart, letting the moment speak for itself. No speech needed, just solidarity. When the crowd finally quieted, he leaned into the microphone and said 8 words. This is what they fear most. You. The place erupted. Reform UK membership applications crashed their website twice in 24 hours from overwhelming traffic. Polling shows Reform gaining serious ground in 43 constituencies across England, most of them Labour seats. Farage isn't a protest vote anymore. He's a genuine threat to both major parties, positioned as the defender of British tradition against radical change. The next 72 hours are absolutely critical to Starmer's survival. Parliament reconvenes Monday morning. Starmer will face hostile questions from his own benches and brutal opposition attacks. There's nowhere to hide, no safe answers. Every response will be clipped, shared and weaponised. King Charles has scheduled another London appearance for Wednesday afternoon. A deliberate challenge Starmer cannot stop without triggering another crisis. The King is daring the Prime Minister to try again. Labour's National Executive Committee meets Thursday to discuss what insiders are carefully calling leadership concerns. 3 cabinet ministers are preparing to resign simultaneously if Starmer doesn't issue a public unconditional apology to King Charles before the weekend. The question is no longer whether Starmer survives, it's how catastrophic his downfall becomes and whether he destroys the Labour Party's credibility on his way out. Britain is watching a Prime Minister attack an institution that survived the English Civil War, 2 world wars, the Blitz, decolonisation and centuries of political upheaval. An institution older than Parliament itself, an institution woven into British identity in ways politicians consistently underestimate. At the centre stands Keir Starmer, looking increasingly isolated, defiant and finished. So here's my question for you. Does Starmer resign this weekend before he's forced out, or does Labour's cabinet remove him in a brutal public execution? Did this Prime Minister just commit the greatest political miscalculation in modern British history? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm reading every single one because this constitutional crisis is unfolding in real time right now, and your perspective matters as we watch history happen. If this shocked you, share it with everyone who needs to understand what's really happening in Westminster right now. The mainstream media is covering the surface, but they're not connecting the dots. They're not showing you the cabinet WhatsApp messages, the internal polling collapse, the dinner meetings, or how close we are to a complete government breakdown. Tomorrow, we break down the leaked messages revealing who Labour's cabinet is actually considering as Starmer's replacement, and why that choice could determine Britain's political direction for the next decade. This is history happening, and you're watching it unfold.